everyone, we've got to the end of the week and I've realised I'm missing 2 book reviews of books that I recently finished reading. So this is the first one, Empress of a Thousand Skies by Rhoda Belleza. I think that's how you pronounce her name. This was in February's Fairyloot box, which was my first Fairyloot box, so rather excited to get a book that I knew virtually nothing about. This was billed as an Arya Stark in space story, and that's pretty much how it comes across. We follow Rhee and Ali, who are 2 people within a system that is on the brink of war. Rhee is the last of her line to the throne, and she's suddenly declared dead. Obviously she's not, because we follow her. Ali is the poor sap who's credited with killing her. Word of advice, he's innocent. Also no spoiler there. There is someone within the system who is making a power play to put themselves upon the throne and rule with an iron fist. What's quite nice about this one, it's a shorter sci-fi YA book. I don't know if that's something about sci-fi YA books, that they are shorter. The fantasies all seem to be rolling around 600 pages plus at the moment. So it was quite nice to have a slightly lighter book to read. For those of you that read almost traditional sci-fi stories from like Asimov and Clarke and that, you will recognise a lot of the symbols and themes running through this story. There's a technology that everybody uses but actually could bring down the downfall of everyone. There is such a thing as space trains that take you around the system. That's fine. I've read that in a short story before. I can cope with that. There's also the time jumps, when obviously it's taken time to get from one planet to another, and the author has not bothered to fill us in with any details because nothing significant to the plot or the character happens during that time. That's also normal in classic sci-fi sort of stories particularly. It's a shorthand to the reader. And so I suppose it helps for me that I've actually experienced a lot of those tools and devices beforehand, because I think if you weren't used to that, you could be sitting there going, hold on, why aren't they flying spaceships from one planet to another? What's this about a train? I don't understand this. And they're all things that come from the classic side of sci-fi. I really liked Rhee. She's effectively a 16-year-old kid. She's been trained in some sort of self-defense. She knows she's going to be Empress one day, but she doesn't want to be. And she's a bit of a hard-headed, stubborn kid. And it's quite nice to have a lead character that actually acts their age. It's quite astounding how many times you read a character in a YA book and they're not that 16, 17-year-old kid that you're expecting. They're actually very, much older almost. I know a lot of people said about Six of Crows, the characters just didn't come across as 16, 17-year-olds. I suppose that's how you took the society. If you thought more along the lines of Charles Dickens with that storyline, then yeah, they would have been 17, 18-year-old kids who were that mature for the Dickens era, because that was the only way you were going to survive. But that's an aside. I liked the structure of this story, that it went from Rhee to Ali and alternative chapters. It had some plot twists that I actually saw coming. There's quite a good one later on that's built up to be quite a surprise, and unfortunately I saw that one coming, but never mind, it's one of those. And some of the character development is done really well, and there's very little romance in this story. It's not a romance story, it's more of a survival story, more of a finding out the truth story, which I quite like. So the romance, it comes very, very late in the story, and actually it's kind of natural considering what people have gone through at the time. Empress of a Thousand Skies is quite a short book compared to some of the big whoppers I've been reading lately. I don't know if that's something about YA sci-fi, that they are shorter books compared to the fantasy and the YA genre, but it was quite a nice light read compared to what I have been reading lately. So if you kind of want to break from the heavy hitters, I would suggest picking this one up. It's a totally different genre from a lot of YA out there at the moment. And like I say, the characters are pretty relatable. It's a nice straightforward plot, and it's not too heavy. I would say some of the side characters were a bit brief. They weren't fleshed out quite as much as they could have been, but I think I would put that down to the length of the book more than anything else. I don't think I'd want this book to be much longer, because the plot that happens in this story doesn't warrant a huge book. But I would say if you wanted more character development, then it would have to have had a few extra pages in it to have developed more of the personalities that we meet. What I did like was it's quite a nice parallel with what's going on now, that we've got an alien race in this system that is effectively looked down upon, despite some attempts to bring them into the whole society thing. There is the nice symbolic destroyed planet that reminds everybody of where we've been and that we can't go back there again, even though that's where we're going back to. There's the reliance upon a technology for storing your memories. It's almost like a smartphone in your brain. They call it the cube. And you can put your favourite memories up at the top and like pin them. And then the lesser ones or the nasty ones you don't want to remember, you can kind of delete them and you don't remember them. And because everybody's plugged into their cubes all the time, they stop relying upon their own memory and they rely upon the cube. So to become unplugged is almost like experiencing the world properly for the first time, and I liked when they unplugged themselves from the cube, that flashes of organic memory, as they call it, come up and they feel totally different from the simulated memories in the cube. And I think that's quite a nice little reflection on how we are as a technological society today. We rely upon our smartphones to tell us everything, to remind us of things, you know, particularly the Facebook moments that pop up on your timeline, or memory videos that come up, you know, your year in reflection video. And it's like, it was very much a reflection of what's happening now in social media. So I thought that was pretty clever. I'll be looking forward to picking up the next book in this instalment. I've no idea if it's a trilogy or a duology or a series. I don't know, but I look forward to reading more about Ree and Ali and seeing how their storylines develop and intertwine more. Yeah, I have to say this was a pleasant surprise of a book. I would say if you don't really read sci-fi, I would give this a go, because it's not a heavy duty like Arthur C. Clarke's sci-fi. It doesn't get bogged down in the sciencey stuff. Things just happen and you just accept it and get on with it. It's quite nice that we get to see different alien cultures in here a little bit, and it's sort of a different way of living our lives. But, you know, as usual, there's always people after power, there's a class system, and it's certainly an interesting reflection on our world as it is now, which is what sci-fi is all about. So yeah, Empress of 1,000 Skies by Rhoda Belzier. I will get that right one day. Please let me know if you read it. What did you think of it? Like I say, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good read, and I kind of recommend it out there to people who like gentle sci-fi or just want something different for a bit. So thank you very much for watching. Happy reading. Bye everyone.